So India and Pakistan have been engaged in military conflict. They've called for a negotiated ceasefire. The military is involved in this negotiation. Lucas, that seems pretty abnormal. Is this something to take special note of? I know you've been following this story pretty closely.
Absolutely. And it's not just India and Pakistan called for a military negotiated ceasefire. Pakistan called Secretary Rubio, Secretary of State for the United States, and requested that the United States intercede in the ongoing conflict between India and Pakistan, and asked that the United States contact India and and specifically the India military and forego a politically brokered ceasefire. So, and this is important and of note because it speaks to the devastation that has occurred in the Pakistani military, and India, and you can hop onto YouTube and watch interviews with India's generals, three of their generals, discussing why they agreed to this ceasefire. And part of that agreement lies with the recognition that they have they have achieved what they call escalation control with regards to Pakistan's ability to engage in military operations. And to that, we've seen I'm sure many people have seen reports in the news and across Twitter of late of the, I don't know, the military response from India into Pakistan in regards to the Pahalgam massacre. We covered that earlier in an episode when it happened. It was looking like there were increased tensions between India and Pakistan. I wondered as to whether it would actually uh, come to actual military action, especially given the uh, the atomic weapons that both India and Pakistan hold, and because of that reason, many people in the world don't are wary of seeing India and Pakistan go to war. But just like with Russia, the United States, uh, Israel, Iran, other countries that have nuclear weapons, part of the focus of this war has been uh, uh, strike capabilities with missiles and conventional warfare that was
Well, speaking of missiles, what are the BrahMos missiles? What's the importance of this? Because I know that part of what happened here was India took out Pakistan's anti-aircraft infrastructure, and they did that with their. Is this new technology for India, the BrahMos missile?
okay. So it's important to get into the weeds and the details with regards to the military systems that were used in this conflict, because they speak to wider relationships, political relationships between other countries. So probably yes, although it's not confirmed, but probably yes, India used the BrahMos missile. The BrahMos missile is one of these hypersonic missiles that is at the a first of note a joint a, a technology that's been developed between cooperation between Russia and India. And the BrahMos missile is a hypersonic missile that can that has many capabilities, not the least of which is to stay very close to the ground and to fly along the ground and to sort of scud run underneath radar cover underneath radar. So it's a surprise. Not only is it incredibly fast, but it's also able to hug the ground to avoid terrain and to make movements as it's approaching its target. So not so probably India used the BrahMos missile. They destroyed all of Pakistan's anti-aircraft batteries, all of them. And those anti-aircraft batteries of Pakistan's were of Chinese, were from were actually, I believe, solely manufactured by the Chinese. So this is a how do we say, a coup for the United States and Russia, if they could be seen as acting in concert. At least the United States is very keen to see this ineffectualness of Chinese technology, even if I'm not sure if the United States has any hypersonic missiles of the Oreshnik or BrahMos, on a par with the Oreshnik or Brahmin supersonic missiles Russia has been putting out.
Well, I guess this is one of the questions that comes up from this, and I think we've at least touched on it before, but I think it's always on my mind whenever I see conflicts that arise is, are we seeing another proxy war between two big established players that don't want to engage directly but want to fund natural conflicts that are arising because they want to take a side? And it seems like here the US has been buddying up to India pretty hard. And if that means that China is then taking the opposite side and they're helping Pakistan, is that what we're seeing here? Is that Pakistan is armed with Chinese weaponry, and this is this proxy fight between the US and China?
So due to the populations and the size and the geographic position of India, it's always best to think of India not as a friend to the United States or a friend to Russia, but somebody who is on a par to compete with China. And that is how the United States looks at India, and that is how Russia looks at India. So India has good political relationships and commercial relationships with the United States, but not only did they use the BrahMos missile, a joint technology developed between them and Russia, they also defended their bases with the Russian S-400 anti-aircraft battery, and they had none of the Pakistani missiles or drones were able to penetrate those defenses. And not only, by the way, did India destroy all of the Chinese anti-aircraft batteries in Pakistan, but they also destroyed 11 air bases in Pakistan, including the one that houses their nuclear weapons. So they essentially neutralized Pakistan, and but to go back to your question, India is best seen not as a full ally, as autonomous. We should think of India with regards to the landmass, the historic identity, and the economic power and the large population in that comprises it. And with regards to where this puts China, one, in light of the dominance of Russian military technology over China, this, the United States will see this as an opening. This is what I fear. There are other things that have been happening. The United States backing out of the Yemeni conflict, also seeking, at least for now, hopefully, some sort of denouement, or a detente with Iran and some sort of agreement with Iran. And we've also seen Donald Trump, shake hands with Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia recently, and that was and Al Jilani too. I don't know if you saw that, but Trump also met with Al Jilani after he was and this is the new leader of Syria, who at one point had a $10 million United States bounty on his head. And Mohammed bin Salam, the Turkish government released a recording of MBS's assassination of Jamal Khashoggi. So that was several years ago. He was persona non grata with the United States, but apparently that has been put aside. And Trump even addressed this in his latest speech, that the United States needs to be less concerned with the actions of foreign leaders and to acknowledge their sovereignty. So a lot is going on in a redefinition of the power of Western Asia, and India has achieved a great coup in this conflict with Pakistan. China, as I look at it, I say that China's strong suit and where they should be what I hope that they take away from this is a reliance on commerce and going back to their Belt and Road Initiative and denying, repudiating American and European imperialism,
Well,
because
what is the Chinese interest in Pakistan? I mean, China has pretty much their own source of minerals. Is there something in Pakistan particularly that China wants, or is it just a relationship with a border uh, country that they want to make sure is strengthened against any kind of threat from India?
I a great question. I think that China's interest in Pakistan comes from probable political tensions inside the country that seek to mimic Western imperialism, and see the answer to fighting Western imperialism as becoming imperialist themselves. And Pakistan, is borders and touches into the Himalayas, but also is part of the spice road, the commercial road to the west and to Europe. Um, so I also think that there is probably a large contingent, a political voice inside of China that says that. That if you play by the sword, you die by the sword, and China should have learned this lesson in the past. Um, I, I would rather see them gain in dominance, economic dominance, through um, you know through technical innovation and and some of their commercial relationships, but they have also sought to be on a par militarily with the United States, with India, and with Russia. So, and this was also part of the tension that kept Russia and China long at from joining hands. The United States, much of our foreign policy since the 70s has been out of an expectation that China sought to militarily compete with Russia, especially, and with India especially, and with Russia secondarily, and we tried to play them against each other. So it has seemed to me that China's sort of meteoric rise has been a turning away uh, from focusing on military conflict and turning towards commercial interests. Um, but they
But
have,
what actually happened here was the ceasefire was successful. Like where tensions have at least calmed down for the moment. Does this mean that the conflict is coming to a close here, or is this the beginning of a longer negotiation, sort of like what we would see in the Middle East with Israel, where it looked like maybe things were going to calm down, but then it just flared right back up again? Do you expect that this ceasefire will hold?
what I expect is military. Oh, I'm sorry. India's military agreed to the ceasefire on the expectation that the neutralization of the Pakistani military was going to lead to internal conflict breaking out in Pakistan. And so, Pakistan has a history of military rule and oligarchic family rule. If you look into Pakistani politics, you're going to find sort of two family names. We have the Bushes and the Clintons to some extent in the United States, but that is a much a deeper familial control in Pakistan, and that is the Bhutto family politically, and the all I believe it's Al Haq is the other family that sort of strives for dominance. Imran Khan, Imran Khan was a prime minister that the United States sought uh, to have suppressed, maybe more than just the United States, but it was part of the United States' interest to have Imran Khan removed from office. He languishes in jail. He was a populist leader that had come to power, a former soccer star in Pakistan who, when it came to the Kashmir conflict, had said self-determination is the proper way forward, and so I I don't know how much of Pakistan's ruling regime had supported the terrorist conflicts and things that were occurring in not just Kashmir and India, but also in Iran. Iran has their government has spoken about the difficult political tension and situation that exists in Pakistan and was part of their patience with some of the terrorist cells and terrorist violence that was occurring on their border with Pakistan. But Imran Khan, to me, had the right of the best political solution going forward for Pakistan, which was to rely on devolution and democratic expression. But he is in jail. He is in jail. Uh, Pakistan opted for the knife rather than the flag, and is desperately vulnerable in the wake of the retaliation from India from that attack in Kashmir. So I expect a revolution in Pakistan. I would expect devolution at some point. You see Balochistan. I'm not sure if that's correct pronunciation, but Balochistan separationists who are rising up
Well,
as
wait a minute. Let's go back to the revolution in Pakistan. That doesn't seem to be in China's best interest. Do you think, is there a Chinese CIA that's going to go in there and try to, install some kind of a government, or put their hand into the mix to ensure that they don't see a destabilization like that? Because I can't imagine that they would desire that kind of a thing right on their border.
Well, Balochistan is part of that revolution, and I think that's going to be part of the separation of Pakistan that occurs. As far as what's in China's best interest, I mean, to me, again, China's best interest is the same interest of the United States, of Russia, and of India, and that is for democratic governments, democratic republics, if they must be, and would probably be so, to reflect the voice of the largest portion of the population to be in the best interest. Um, that is the political unity that seeks commerce and good faith relationships with neighbors, as opposed to as opposed to special operations and insidious negative manipulation and sabotage with the neighboring countries. So I think that I think that China's Belt and Road Initiative, their uh, you know they have risen in their position in the world, their socio economic status of the citizens of China, not by fighting the United States Bretton Woods dollar system, but understanding and playing with it, and understanding, how they could benefit in in that system. And they have also been instrumental in creating an alternative system that doesn't destroy a global currency or global commercial system, but sought to remove the negative sanctioning and uh, and dominance that the United States was using through denying countries from participation in that system. This is what has brought India and China into agreement, into a shared vantage of the world, and not just China and Russia, but also Brazil and South America. So that's opened a lot of doors for them. Um, and again, I'm also very aware of naval operations that they've participated in to try to countermand the United States, Korean, and Philippines relationships that go on in the South China Sea and in their naval borders. But again, I would say that they would be better suited to thwarting United States ambitions and Western European imperialism in the world, again through commercial means as opposed to military means.
So, and what's Russia's position in all of this? Because they're very close by. Are they partnering with the United States? Is this where we see the renewed relations between Russia and America playing out, as it's like Russia, India, US against China, Pakistan, or is Russia just selling weaponry to India?
I mean, I would say that Russia has a history of being concerned about defense. And when I say Western with or European imperialism, that goes back for quite some time. And Russia has fought off the 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 European nobility, wars foisted on them by from Napoleon to the Swedes to the Norwegians to the Finns to the Poles, and have that's been a constant struggle in Russia's past. So I would say that Russia has, yeah, I mean you know Russia just celebrated the end of World War II, um, and had days of celebration and remembrance of the 27 million soldiers that they lost in World War II, and that was the United States focuses on VJ, or Victory in Japan, rather than VE, Victory in Europe Day, because of the part that the United States played in that defeat, and also because of the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. And that is sort of the memory that we've carried from that conflict. But Russia, on the heels of their victory in Europe against the Germans, were 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 moving their troops across the massive country of Russia as quickly as possible. And they told the United States that, like, hold your ground in Japan, because we have scores to settle in the East, and we have put down um, these long imperial notions on our eastern border, and now we are going to go quell them in the West. And the United States, at the day to what 1 or 2 days after the Russian troops had crossed Russia and had crossed the line into Korea and Japan, dropped some atomic bombs on some Japanese cities. And the line that was put forth to the American people, where those bombs were dropped to save the lives of American soldiers and to prevent a continuing a continuing conventional war. But I think they were as much, if not more so, a message to Russia and an imperialist calculation about securing imperial power in Eastern Asia.
So the S-400 missile system, this is being employed by India against Pakistan. Is this what they use to take out the
So yes,
anti-air?
and this missile system was not breached by any of the drones or missiles, the Chinese made drones or missiles from Pakistan. Now
That
we
that that seems significant. Like, tell me a bit more about that. So, the Chinese had supplied technology to Pakistan, and it was ineffective. It didn't work, and so they
so
is it a
yes, and
technological defeat of the Chinese?
yes, and not only that, I mean, we also have to take into consideration the United States' reticence to maintain their air war in Yemen, in Syria, and in Iran. And uh, there has been limited reports about the F-16s and the F-35s um, being tracked and seen by radar or by anti-aircraft defenses in those areas. So I'm not sure if Iran is using the S-400 anti-aircraft system, but I think part of what this system is doing to defeat the stealth technologies of American or Western systems is maybe has something to do with water vapor. I'm not sure. I haven't dug that deeply into it, but we do know that several missions in Yemen um, were were compromised, and we almost lost some F-16 and F-35 aircraft. So again, the Russians understood in the breakup of the Soviet Union, Vladimir Putin specifically, that when Europe and the United States did not dismantle NATO and turn towards uh, the commercial Bretton Woods system, the globalized sort of world economy, but instead held NATO together and began to expand NATO, they understood that this was a lingering offensive threat that was couched in defensive terms. And they have long, sort of abandoned the antiquated, mutually assured destruction model of warfare that was built on the premise of nuclear weapons, and looked towards neutralizing the air attack that the United States and NATO depended on. And think back to the bombing of uh, the 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 bombing of Serbia, the former Yugoslavia, and the many military campaigns of the United States. I mean, whether it be Iraq, Libya, et cetera, et cetera. The West has relied on military dominance through the air, and has been very reticent to put soldiers and boots on the ground. And so Russia looked at that and said, we need to be able to neutralize the air attacks, and we need to also be able to defeat their anti-aircraft batteries. And they developed missiles that have a range of technologies to penetrate American defenses. Let's also go back to the Yemeni hypersonic missile that that struck Ben Gurion Airport in Israel recently. That missile penetrated not only the Israeli Iron Dome system, which included two, a far-ranging and a local reactive aircraft anti-aircraft system, but also um, the United States military's prize anti-aircraft system, the THAAD system, of which there are only 7 in existence. And the United States had deployed one into Israel to protect Israel from Syria or Yemen, but especially Syria after, I'm sorry, Iran after Israel launched their attacks into Iran. And the THAAD missile system coupled with the Israeli anti-aircraft systems was unable to prevent a Yemeni attack. And we know that these Western Asian nations have been sharing notes in their technologies. Again, look to Russia. I mean, who has been supplying all the drones in Russia's war with Ukraine? Iran. So there has been a concentrated effort in I don't know the leftovers of the Soviet access to prevent further dominance from the United States and European allies in the post Cold War, NATO, the NATO expansion into Russia and into Western Asia. So this is this is this is a new this is a new political order. We talk a lot about the collapse of the dollar hegemony and SWIFT payment networks and things that have occurred through the sanctions and abuse of that system. But likewise, there has been a long concentrated effort to also neutralize the American aerial attack, and I think that we've come to that point. I mean, especially as the United States pulls out of Yemen and abandons the attack there, and desperately seeks to pivot in. I say the United States. Donald Trump it certainly does. I think part of the slow turn of American policy with regards to Iran has to do um, with I don't know, those who still believe in American primacy and American dominance. But I don't believe, and it doesn't seem to me from others that that would go well for us if we fought Iran.
Well, anything else to say? It sounds like we got a pretty good rundown of what's happening here. We've got India striking a blow to Pakistan. Seems like a technological advancement using some of the Russian technology. We've got America and China sort of lining up in this proxy battle, and hopefully, some kind of long-standing, de-escalation can survive here, but we're keeping a close eye on it. Any last thoughts before we wrap it up for today?
Well, just that we also have seen more regional alliances being expressed in in Western Asia, and where Trump is taking some flack from the gift of a Boeing jet from Qatar. But we've seen um, the son of the leader of Saudi Arabia. Was it MBS? I'm not sure, but one of the heads of state of Saudi Arabia went to visit Iran. That is a great thawing of a long simmering conflict in that area. We did an episode questioning, what sort a lot of alliance that might look like the old Arab League coming in that region. But I think we're going to see more regional alliances. Part of the I think the wave of the I don't want to say collapse, but a lessening of American primacy, of European imperialism, is going to be regional trade and regional alliances. And I expect to see more of that. I also expect to see more devolution occurring in some of these countries, especially those that were maybe somewhat artificially carved up from the French and uh, British empires in the wake of World War II. Which we haven't even touched on things going on in Africa, but this will also have maybe some maybe open the door for. I guess the last thing that I'll lead with is anytime I see like conflict occurring in the world, I wonder, what latent, formerly weakened power or political insurgency is going to strike while there is chaos. And so that's the last thing I'm keeping my eye out for.
All right. Well, we'll keep watching for what's happening in these regions, and as these regional areas continue to solidify into smaller trade zones, and that we see certain conflicts arise when these trade zones can have disputes around their local regional issues. And I think that might be a good thing for us to spend a bit more time digging into on a later episode. So yeah, if this is one of many, it's a fascinating thing to think about. If this is the new norm as we start to see the waning of the U.S. empire, but we'll deal with that on a follow-up show in FOMO, and we'll see you next time.